When the United States Congress stops everything they're doing to officially condemn one black man's speech, you better believe that man said something that shook the foundations of their power structure. Let me tell you about a man whose name still makes the establishment nervous, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. And before we go any further, I need you to understand something. When Congress took the unprecedented step of censuring a private citizen for a speech he gave at a college, that was not about protecting anyone. That was about silencing a voice that was waking black people up to truths they desperately wanted to keep hidden. November 29, 1993, Keene College in New Jersey, Dr. Khalid Muhammad delivered a speech that would result in the U.S. House of Representatives voting 361 to 34 to condemn him. Let that sink in for a moment. Congress, which can barely agree on anything, came together in overwhelming numbers to officially denounce a black man for speaking at a college campus. They used words like outrageous and reprehensible. They called it hate speech. But here's what they really meant. This man is too powerful, and we need to destroy his platform before more black people start listening. Dr. Khalid Muhammad was not just a speaker, he was a force. The man had a gift for breaking down complex historical and economic realities in ways that regular black folks could understand and feel in their bones. He did not speak in academic jargon. He spoke in the language of the streets, the barbershops, the kitchen tables, and that made him dangerous because he could reach people that traditional civil rights leaders could not touch.
Contend that when you came here to the hills of North America, you didn't come Harry McGillicuddy. You didn't come Lucinda Brown. You didn't come Johnny May Hamburger. You didn't come Mr. Upstreet, Mr. Rivers by the Still Waters and Muddy Waters and all of these names, and Orangeburg and Greenleaf and Swartz and Scapinelli and Dangerfield. You didn't come here, Mr. Workman. Some of you haven't worked in 3 years running around New York talking about I'm Mr. Workman and I'm Miss Workman. You didn't come here, Mr. Branch. You're not a tree. I'm Mr. Van Buren. You're not a truck. What kind of man are you?
Before that speech at Keene College made him a national target, Dr. Khalid had already been doing the work. He was a national spokesman and later national assistant to Minister Louis Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam. He traveled the country speaking on college campuses and community centers, anywhere black people would gather. His message was consistent. Black people need to wake up, stand up, and take control of our own destiny. He talked about self-reliance, economic independence, and the systems designed to keep us oppressed. He was not asking for integration. He was demanding liberation. The speech that got him censured covered historical atrocities, economic exploitation, and the realities of anti-black racism in America. He talked about slavery with the kind of raw honesty that makes people uncomfortable. He discussed how various groups had participated in or benefited from black oppression. He named names and connected historical dots that powerful people preferred to keep disconnected. And yes, parts of that speech were controversial and inflammatory. But here's what gets lost in all the condemnation. The man was speaking to the rage and pain of black people who had been systematically brutalized for centuries. What made Dr. Khalid so threatening was not just what he said, but how he said it. He was unapologetic. He did not soften his message for white comfort. He did not code switch for mainstream acceptance. He spoke directly to black people about black liberation, and he did not care who got offended in the process. In a society that demands black people be palatable, moderate, and grateful, Dr. Khalid was none of those things, and they could not control that. After the congressional censure, Minister Farrakhan removed Dr. Khalid from his position in the Nation of Islam, though he later acknowledged pressure that decision was made under. But Dr. Khalid did not disappear. He formed the new Black Panther Party and continued organizing. He kept speaking, he kept teaching, he kept pushing black people towards self-determination and economic power. The censure did not silence him. If anything, it amplified his message to those who were paying attention. Let's talk about why America was really threatened by this man. It was not about individual controversial statements. It was about the totality of his message and the movement he was building. Dr. Khalid taught black people to see themselves as a nation within a nation. He taught us to think in terms of group economics and collective power. He taught us to study our history beyond what they teach in schools. He taught us to question everything we've been told about who we are and what we deserve. He talked about reparations decades before it became a mainstream conversation. He talked about Black economic independence when most civil rights leaders were still focused on integration. He talked about the need for Black people to control our own communities, our own schools, our own businesses, our own destiny. That kind of messaging creates a population that cannot be controlled through traditional means, and that terrified them. Dr. Khalid also had the ability to mobilize young Black people, particularly young Black men who felt disconnected from traditional civil rights organizations. He spoke their language. He validated their anger. He gave them a framework to understand their experiences. He told them they were not crazy for feeling like this system was designed to destroy them. He told them they were warriors, not victims. He gave them pride in their Blackness at a time when everything around them was telling them to be ashamed. The Million Youth March he organized in Harlem in 1998 drew thousands of young Black people despite the city's attempts to shut it down. The mayor at the time tried to deny permits, tried to limit the march, tried everything to prevent it from happening. Why? Because a gathering of conscious, organized, energized young Black people is exactly what this system cannot tolerate. Dr. Khalid proved he could mobilize that energy, and that made him a threat to the status quo. Here's what mainstream narratives will not tell you. Dr. Khalid was also about education and self-improvement. He encouraged Black people to read, to study, to learn our history. He talked about the importance of family, of building strong communities, of supporting Black businesses. He pushed financial literacy and economic empowerment. He was not just about anger and rhetoric. He was about building a foundation for Black independence. He studied Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and other Pan-African leaders. He understood that Black liberation required more than just protest. It required institution building, economic development, and mental decolonization. He tried to instill that understanding in every audience he addressed. He wanted Black people to stop begging for inclusion in a system that was built on our exclusion and start building our own systems. The establishment's response to Dr. Khalid reveals everything about how power operates in this country. When a Black leader preaches integration and incremental change within existing systems, they'll give you a holiday and put your face on a stamp. But when a Black leader preaches separation, self-determination, and economic independence, they'll use every tool at their disposal to destroy you. Congressional censures, media campaigns, organizational pressure, financial targeting. They will make an example of you to send a message to anyone else who might think about walking that path. And it worked to some degree. After Dr. Khalid's censure, many Black leaders distanced themselves from him. They condemned his rhetoric. They refused to share stages with him. They treated him like radioactive material because they were afraid that association would damage their own standing with white power structures. That's how control works. You do not have to silence everyone. You just have to make an example of one person and watch everyone else police themselves out of fear. But here's what they could not kill: the ideas. The seeds Dr. Khalid planted in the minds of Black people who heard him speak. The concept of Black economic power, the importance of knowing our history, the need for self-determination, the understanding that freedom is not given but taken. Those ideas survived him and continue to grow. When Dr. Khalid Muhammad died in 2001, he was only 53 years old. He had a brain aneurysm and died in Atlanta. Some people, particularly in the conscious community, questioned the circumstances of his death, though nothing was ever proven. What we do know is that he lived his entire adult life under surveillance, under threat, under constant attack from powerful forces that wanted him silenced. The stress of that existence takes a toll. What Dr. Khalid understood and what made him so powerful was that Black liberation is fundamentally about power, not moral righteousness, not proving we deserve humanity, not appealing to the conscience of our oppressors. Power, economic power, political power, the power to control our own communities and determine our own futures. He refused to sugarcoat that message, and that refusal is what made him a target. Today, we're seeing some of Dr. Khalid's ideas resurface in different forms. The conversation about reparations is now mainstream. More Black people are talking about group economics and buying Black. There's growing interest in Black self-determination and community control. The seeds he planted are bearing fruit, even if his name is not always attached to the harvest. But we need to be honest about something. The forces that targeted Dr. Khalid are still operating. They still cannot tolerate Black leaders who advocate for true independence from white institutional control. They still work to marginalize, discredit, and destroy anyone who gets too effective at organizing Black economic and political power. The tactics might be more sophisticated now, but the goal is the same: keep Black people dependent, divided, and controlled. This is why studying figures like Dr. Khalid Muhammad matters. Not because we have to agree with everything he said or how he said it, but because understanding why the system targeted him helps us understand how power operates. It helps us recognize the patterns. It helps us see which messages are considered dangerous and why. It helps us understand that the most heavily censored voices are often the ones speaking the most threatening truths to power. Dr. Khalid taught us that Black people should never apologize for advocating for ourselves with the same ferocity that other groups advocate for themselves. He taught us that our liberation will not come from appealing to the better angels of our oppressors, but from building our own power base. He taught us that true freedom requires economic independence, not just legal rights. He taught us to be unapologetic in our Blackness and uncompromising in our demands. The congressional censure was meant to discredit him, to make him radioactive, to send a message that crossing certain lines would result in institutional annihilation. But for those who were paying attention, it sent a different message. This man must be saying something powerful if they're this desperate to silence him. And that might be Dr. Khalid Muhammad's greatest legacy. He showed us exactly what terrifies the establishment. He showed us where the real power lies. And he showed us that even when they come at you with the full force of institutional condemnation, you can keep standing, keep speaking, and keep organizing. That's the lesson. That's the inheritance. That's why they were so threatened by Dr. Khalid Muhammad.